I've never done anything like this.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of our HPE MOOC. We're so glad that you're with us here in Pennsylvania and from all over the country, hopefully. We have 3 super special guests tonight. When Jessica and I were talking about doing this a while ago, I said, you know, we have to hit big with something somehow, and we just got kicking things around, and I thought, you know what, these 3 ladies are 3 of the most inspiring people you will ever meet in your lives. I've seen all of them keynote at different times, and you will laugh, you will cry, you will be inspired, and you will learn. And I'm so excited to have with us tonight our current Shape America president, Fran Cleland from Westchester University. From New Jersey, our president-elect, Judi Lobianco, and our past AFERD president from New Hampshire, right? New Hampshire, is Irene Cucina. And so we'll give them a few minutes to introduce themselves. We'll start with Fran, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Hey, everybody. Fran Cleland here. This is my 23rd year at Westchester University. I think close to 40 teaching overall. I taught K-8 in Indiana, K-12 in Virginia, K-8 in Oregon. Then I went back to grad school and became a professor. I love teaching college students, so I'm a teacher educator. Also, I've been very, very involved in our national association, our state association, Pennsylvania State AFERD, and also our Eastern District Association. I'm having a great year, wrapping it up being the Shape America president.
Irene. Oops, sorry. I guess we were going to do Judi, but yeah, Judi and then Irene, sorry.
Set me up. Hi, everybody. Judi Lobianco, President-elect Shape America here. I'm from New Jersey. I'm the proud supervisor of health, physical education, and nursing services in the South Orange Maplewood schools. And while I was there as a supervisor, we were blessed with winning 2 back-to-back PEP grants in the amount of $2.4 million, which was ridiculous and awesome and was fantastic. I've been in service since I was an undergrad, and I currently teach an adjunct class at Monmouth University in methods for health education and physical education. Glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Irene.
Hey, everybody. Irene Cucina from Plymouth State University. I'm a professor and graduate program coordinator for teacher preparation. I was the last AFERD president. Spent 16 years as a high school health and physical educator and coached, implemented some early childhood programs for the city of Newton in Massachusetts, where I started my leadership work, and then worked my way through the Eastern District and up through the national organization. And I'm really excited to be here with my colleagues and current Shape America president and soon to be Shape America president, and of course with you and Jessica. So thank you so much for the invite.
She's my mentor.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, like I said, you couldn't have 3 better professionals here tonight. And speaking of great professionals, my co-host is back this week. Jessica, we missed you last week.
I know, I missed you all.
And you can kick it off tonight. You take the first.
All right, throwing me right into it. So, Fran, we're going to direct this first question to you. When people hear 50 million strong coming from Shape America, what is that? What do people need to know about 50 million strong?
It's so interesting because we just had this conversation this past week with a phone call. We really need to tell our members what 50 million strong is about. Well, it sort of originated a few years ago, and it originated as sort of a rally cry, something in the terms of along the lines of a cause movement, something that would get health and physical educators really excited about becoming a Shape America member. I'm not so sure it accomplished that. It first was very focused on physical activity and really didn't have a way of engaging health and physical education teachers directly. So in the last year or so, the Shape America board, and since I get to travel, I get to do some presentations, so does Judi, we've tried to articulate a little bit more about what is a 50 million strong teacher to really get teachers engaged and sort of connecting with 50 million strong. So to that end, we've been sharing this presentation with some folks in different state AFERDs, have the opportunity to travel. And basically what it's about is teachers doing the best that they can do, best practices that lead to health literacy and physical literacy. And there's some stepping stones to that. But so basically it is a commitment. It's not a curriculum. It's not a set program. And it's about getting teachers engaged and really helping them possess the tools to get kids physically literate and health literate.
Well, the thing that I think is so powerful about that statement is we know now that a big worry with a lot of people that are out in the public schools is that waivers and policies for replacing programs are always something that we feel is kind of like knocking at our door. I think it's a multifaceted approach that we need to work with this, but the 50 million strong for me is something that I think could speak to legislators, could speak to parents, could speak to administrators. So how do you think teachers can take that and advocate, the commitment of 50 million strong and the importance of it?
That's interesting because I don't think that, Irene and we were talking earlier, talked about it, 50 million strong sort of being like a tagline. I don't necessarily think that legislators or even parents will directly connect with it unless they know what teachers are doing to try to achieve it. And to that end, like, how are teachers impacting student learning? What differences are teachers making in the lives of children? That's what parents are going to care about. That's what PTOs and school boards are going to care about. What are some things that my children are learning and why are they important? So if it can be framed in 50 million strong, if that'll get their attention, cool. So, I'm all about getting my children to be physically literate and health literate. My national association calls that 50 million strong because there's 50 million kids approximately in the United States. But I think that slogan or commitment alone is not going to engage parents or school board members. I think it's what do teachers do that helps their children live productive lives. And I think the literacy part is what's most important.
If I could just jump in and piggyback off of that a little bit and maybe throw this out to Judi, do you think that maybe we have a marketing issue then in terms of we as health and physical education professionals, not necessarily the national organization's job or state or local, but is it a marketing issue that we as professionals have?
Well, thank you for that. I think the marketing issue is not my concern. The marketing issue is going to go to the people who are the go-getters in the profession, right? So we've got this core group of educators that are highly engaged in Shape America, highly engaged with their kids and what they do. And then there's this whole other set of professionals that we don't even touch or that we don't even reach. So when you think about 50 million children, we have to make sure that that commitment means, that slogan means, that call to arms means we're going to go to the deepest, darkest reaches of every classroom and make sure that every child deserves and gets a quality health and physical education program. So when we talk about marketing, it's about Shape America giving teachers the tools that they need as champions to be able to make this happen in their schools, but also reaching the unreachable, which we've been trying to do for decades through the time that we were AFRID, and I'm sure Irene could speak to that, through this very day. Where are these people? What are they doing? How do we hold them accountable? And how do we make sure that every child in every classroom gets the quality health and physical education that they deserve? Because it's a matter of life and death, no doubt about it, a matter of life and death.
So when we have this big population that we know that we're not reaching, and you think of the next generation that's coming out, Irene, I'm going to put this next question to you. Do you see universities changing their approach to how they're preparing future teachers to go out into the profession?
I think we still have that core of teachers, of teacher preparation professionals that enforce, promote, encourage, and push their teacher candidates to become members. Unfortunately, we fragmented ourselves within the profession so much, where exercise science has their own New England ACSM and the total ACSM for the country, the national, and the athletic trainers used to be part of us. And then all the academies were part of us with biomechanists, etc. And we fragmented ourselves so much that the teacher preparation programs are not as large as they used to be. And many of the faculty are not promoting it. I've talked to people in teacher prep, and a lot of us have dropped out textbook requirements. enforcing the requirement of being a member of the state and national association as part of the course fees. And that, you know, that alone, our students want to present with us because we promote that. So you really need an engaged higher ed community. And I think the new council that they called for through Shape America for higher education will help us to do that. And I think having students tell us what they need. Last week, that was one of my major questions with the Outstanding Future Professionals. What do you need when you're 1 year, 2 year, 3 years out of college to continue engagement with the national organization and the state and the district?
Yeah, that kind of makes me jump ahead to one of the questions I was going to ask later, but I feel like it's an appropriate place for this. Ironically, I had 2 emails from very new to the profession teachers that had just reached out to say, you know, how do you stay positive when you're in a climate when you have teachers that are still doing old school things? I just came out of college knowing all this great stuff, and now I feel like I can't apply it. And the biggest question that I was asked out of these 2 is, how do I get buy-in? So, Fran, I'll bump over to you. What advice would you have for these future professionals coming out that need to get the buy-in, not just from students, but from their colleagues?
I think sometimes it's a mindset, it's a personal mindset as an educator. How are you going to go about that? You know, I think about the folks from Naperville and how they changed their curriculum and changed sort of the course of a lot of what's happening across the nation. So it's sort of like one class of students at a time, and doing what you know is right. You have academic freedom as a teacher in a public school. And, you know, unless I'm having to team teach, which happens in a lot of schools, and I'm sure Judi can attest to that as well. If I have my own classroom and I have my own environment, I'm the one that gets to establish, you know, the protocol and establish the requirements for learning. So I think a lot of it is how strong are these young teachers in being able to take those steps just a little bit at a time. And I think as a teacher educator, we have to prepare them for that. We have to prepare them for how to make incremental changes and not, you know, necessarily try to change the world today. I had that conversation with my student teachers tonight, you know, because they were talking about instant activities, you know, times, you know, things that weren't getting done, things that weren't very well organized. And I said, well, these are not your students and this is not your school, but someday it will be. So I think understanding how to implement change and how to look at possibilities and how to really reflect on teaching is super important for these young teachers to do, and to realize that, you know, you just little steps of success is important, you know.
I think, Judi, that reminds me of your keynote. Was that 2 years ago?
Yeah, moral courage.
Running around the room, moral courage. And I just, that was honestly one of the most powerful things for me. And it's something that I think people need to be aware of, that especially younger teachers, it's not going to change overnight. I mean, with anything, any job, any profession, whether you're in a school, whether you're working with an association, change does not happen overnight. But over time, those small changes that you make to work towards the greater good and the bigger picture are going to, you know, have the longest lasting effects.
Yeah, and I have to add to this that, you know, it's not so much the young teacher that sees that horrible stuff that goes on around them and having to change. It's the young teacher asking, why doesn't anything happen to that person, right? And so my call is the call out to principals and those who are not holding accountable, those teachers that are not doing right by kids. And that's what we mean by moral courage. We need to make sure that in every gymnasium and health classroom across this country, that we make these people feel as uncomfortable as they can be, so that they know that there's a new way of doing things and that that's going to become the norm. And until we shine a light on these people and get them as comfortable as they can be, they're not going to look at their practice. They're never going to reflect. And we need to make sure that principals understand that they have a responsibility in that gymnasium and they have a responsibility in that health classroom, because at the end of the day, it's the principal who's held culpable and accountable for what goes on in those spaces.
And the sad thing is, too, that I think a principal is so much more likely that they're going to see a phys ed program and not see a value in it if it's run like that, or maybe because they think of the experience that they had with it, so they cut it. And then, you know, if that was a math or a science or any other subject, they'd be working with that teacher to get them to where they need to go. And I think that's something too that needs to be stressed, especially that they need to make sure that how would you handle a student that was struggling? You'd help them through. You know, if you have a teacher that's not delivering a curriculum or something that you need to do, you help them through it, because at the end of the day, the kids are what's impacted by that, and they need to have access to the best that there is.
Hey, Jess, can I double back on that question for just a second? I was just thinking about, I'm thinking about what my current student teachers are experiencing. And what I was thinking of is that you sort of have to surround yourself with greatness. If you're getting, taken down because you go into a school environment where they have a whole unit of mat ball or a whole unit of dodgeball, or they're not doing assessment, or they don't engage kids, throughout the whole lesson, and kids are standing around or sitting down, you have to engage yourself with greatness. You have to surround yourself with that. And, that's why I think I really would love to see Shape America have more video footage of best practices. I'm giving Physedagogy a plug for this, because Physedagogy is free, and I've gone on to some of their summits, and I'm telling you, you might be hearing something from somebody from Saudi Arabia or somebody from Minnesota, and these people are doing some great things. These people that are applying to do other presentations. And so I think you still have to get yourself to conventions. You have to be watching webinars. You have to, go to the Shape America Online Institute. So as a teacher educator, and I'm sure Irene would agree with this, we have to make sure that the kids that graduate know what these accessible things are, and then continue, and we have to infuse those into our courses. And I try to do that as much as possible. Let's watch an archived Physedagogy session on assessment. Let's look at this. But at the same time, their cooperating teachers are very powerful influences on their teaching decisions, especially, once they get that first job. So we have to continue to focus on best practices. What Judi was saying, we got to do the right thing for kids.
So I just want to shift gears really quickly, and move to kind of current programming. And Irene, I'll throw this to you since you're the resident health expert in our panel tonight. Health seems to be in many schools, I call it a quote box that gets checked in schools. Everyone takes it at a specific grade level. You have health in 11th grade. The teacher's probably a PE teacher, rolls in. Sometimes in the worst programs, they just give worksheets. And so on. But how do we get schools to kind of change that philosophy and realize that health is an ongoing process in education? 6th grader isn't the same as an 8th grader, a 9th grader isn't the same as a 12th grader. So to just plop health one time in those secondary areas, I think is somewhat short-sighted. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if all we had to do was provide knowledge to people relative to health behaviors, we'd be a very healthy society, because the number one factor really is motivation, and teaching people the skills and knowledge to do that. So I think Shape America, I think state SAMs can do this, the State Society of Association Managers, the state AFERDs, and Shape America's at the state level. We need to get involved with the principals, because they have no idea what we do. And we need to be presenting at their conference. And we've done this before in sessions, and this is from a colleague. If you had physical educators turn to their friends and say, explain how to throw a ball, the kid could turn and tell them exactly how to throw a ball. But if you then say to your partner, now you turn to your friend and tell them how they analyze influences that both positive and negative that can affect your decisions, you'll hear crickets in the room. And that's an example of what we're seeing. So there are some teachers we asked if they will mentor our people in their health practicums, and they actually, which is shocking to me, these health educators will say, no, thank you. I don't want to mentor a practicum student this semester. And it's because they don't want me to see what they're doing. because my students come back and say, when are we going to see what you told us we're supposed to be doing? And I think the biggest problem is the principals. If we can engage principals so that they know what a good health education curriculum looks like, and they know what a good physical education looks like, and everyone knows that we have health and physical education standards and grade level outcomes, I think that the world would be a different place. And also, if these principals can actually know that their teachers are teaching curriculum based in health behavior theory, because they are doing what they learned as teachers. And so I don't know what the best process is to do that, except to engage principals, and we need to push ourselves onto them. I do know that Massachusetts has done an excellent job with advocacy, and because they really believe, a group of health educators got to speak with the Massachusetts State Attorney General about the opioid epidemic, and they actually are looking at health education curriculum to try to change the behaviors of adolescents and young kids through this health education curriculum. It's pockets.
Mm-hmm.
So, Judi, I'll just piggyback off of what Irene said, because saying something about the principals, and then I'll throw this to you, Judi, and Fran, jump in too. This year, my presidential year at Pennsylvania State AFERD, one of the things that I thought was important to do was to connect to administrators, to bring them to us, to let them see what we did. And that's why we established George Couros, and then I established an administrator track as part of our actual phys ed convention, so that we could kind of integrate with them, show them some best practices in health and phys ed. What are your thoughts on doing that at other states? Are you seeing that in other states? Because I know the three of you travel around so much, but I'll start with you, Judi. Are you seeing that in New Jersey?
Right. So what we see from principals in New Jersey in particular is that we are getting further with them by talking about the things they most want to hear. When they hear that kids are chronically absent, when they hear that their kids have insane rates of stress, depression, and anxiety, because that's what we're dealing with across the country, they want to be able to know who or what can fix that for them. And they don't have to go any further than the health educator, right? So when I say that what we do is a matter of life and death, it is. It is. Health more so than anything else. And if we can get principals to understand what it looks like to be in a skill-based health classroom, we're going to be able to get a lot further. We can't get behind principals when they say, oh my goodness, we've had this tragic event happen in our school. Now let's go to the health educator and find out what we need to do to remedy it going into the future. We have to take a more proactive stance. And it's really important that health educators and physical educators embrace their roles as advocates with the principal, right? So no longer is there a place for the physical educator to say, my principal never comes into my gym and that's the way I like it. No, those days are way over. Those days are over. And the only way to move the needle on these pieces is to make sure that principals not only are present in our classrooms and gymnasiums, but understand that what we offer helps them with the other issues they talk about, from chronic absenteeism to increased levels of stress in their high schools. Health and physical educators have a seat at that table. No matter what it is, we have a seat at that table. We know how to get 360 around the whole child in K through 12, and principals need to start to tap into us, respect us for what we do, and tap into our knowledge base in that regard.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, as I've gone to different state conferences, I have not seen specific tracks for principals at other states. So I think what you did, Todd, probably is pretty innovative. Imagine that was your theme of your conference. And I was just also thinking that, there's a lot of things about the Shape America conference that we all have opinions about, but that would be a really cool move to integrate at the national level, to have that kind of track for principals as well at our national association, and in addition to us going there. But the other thing I was thinking about, and maybe Irene, you know about this, but we have an observation tool for principals to use to go in and watch a physical education class, but I don't know if we have the parallel for a principal to go in and watch a health. That would be a perfect thing for the Health Education Council to work on.
Well, physical education is more closely aligned, I think, with music and art than health education. The Charlotte Danielson model to evaluate classroom teachers works really well with health educators. And I think that's the difference is that we're more closely aligned in health education to science than we are to physical education. However, I've said it repeatedly, all physical educators are health educators because physical competency is one of the components of being a healthy individual and being health literate. So I just think that if we all believe that we are health educators and that we are affecting a child's health and that we think, Fun Friday, is that going to affect their health? Like I've said, I would have loved Fun Friday when I had to have a math class. Fun Friday. And those things, principals have to know that that is not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. You know, I can understand a project-based Fun Friday where you're sharing your projects, your successes, your assessments, whatever the case might be. That's fun. You know, I don't know.
Well, so, you know, my university uses the Danielson framework. In fact, I'll be using the rubric to observe. We don't use it for a grade, but do you think that the Danielson framework alone would align itself? Like if I went in to watch a health education class as a principal, I would be able to tell, are they teaching a skills-based lesson or is it worksheets and videos?
Well, I think, yeah, I think that any principal that doesn't know the educational semantics of participatory learning and engaging your learners and not lecturing in this 21st century group for more than 5 to 8 minutes without engaging your group, right there, if they see them doing a video and worksheets or video worksheets, I mean, to have a high school kid read a paragraph and then the exact sentence is below and they fill in the blank, our first graders do more than that. Yeah. Not developmentally appropriate. And of everything in your life, wouldn't you want to be in a class that talks all about you? It's all about me, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you brought up the whole Danielson framework because we've been getting quote unquote trained at it at the university. I don't know, Judy, if they've done a lot of it in your school district, but you're right, absolutely right, Irene, because it would look for those kinds of teaching behaviors and practices. Yeah.
It looks at all of that, and I think the problem is that we have to teach our teacher candidates what it feels like to be evaluated on the Charlotte Danielson model because it's a prevalent framework across this country, and they have to know that they have to track their students, whether they're in the physical education classroom or the health education classroom, to see if they're having an impact. And it's the principal's fault, like Judy said before. The principal is culpable for poor health, graduating kids without the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to be healthy because they don't really put their energy there. And that's where all their energy should go.
Yeah. Amen.
Come on.
I know, Irene could just drop the mic after that one. That was awesome.
It makes me sad. Doesn't it make you all sad about?
It does.
It does. It really does.
But it also, and I know it's true for all of you because you're involved beyond your universities and your school districts, it makes you just want to fight harder for it, you know, and that's, to me, that's why I mean, obviously it's, you know, with my job now, but before that, to me, being connected to people that realize they want to impact not only their students within their reach, but beyond that, because every student should have access to that. And it's a long uphill battle, but it's a battle that can and will be won with persistence. So it's just, we just need people like you all to keep fighting the good fight. So with all of the traveling that I know has come with the territory of the roles that you've all held with the National Association, we'll go down the line because I'd love your input on this. Judi, we'll start with you. If you think of one of the most impactful, just innovative lessons that you've seen, whether it was from somebody that was a teacher, whether it was a future professional that was at the university level ready to get out, what comes to mind when you think of that lesson that really, or that teacher or that program that stands out to you?
Right. So I'm a supervisor now, so I observe teaching all the time. And I have this teacher at the high school. She's a nationally board certified health educator. And I walked into her classroom and music was playing, soft music. And she called the day Mindfulness Monday. And she had the kids meditating, coming into the classroom, wound up. These are ninth graders now. And for the first 5 to 8 minutes, these kids, you could see how changed they were by this 5 to 8 minute permission to be resting, to be breathing deeply. And from the moment she finished the mindfulness exercise, she had them for the next 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. She not only had them cognitively, but she had them focused, but she also had their gratitude, that she would care enough about their health to know when they needed to wind down. And it was a 5th period class. It was like in the middle of the day. I've never seen such a special connection between teacher and students. And it really reminded me that before you can teach anything, you have got to make that connection with kids first. However long it takes, it might be day 3 of the quarter, might be day 10 of the quarter, but you've got to get that connectedness going first before you do anything else. And it was just beautiful to me. And every time I see her classroom, it's just a joy to be there.
Very cool. Yeah.
Irene, what stands out to you?
You know, this one episode, what stands out is not an individual lesson, but a school system that bought into professional development. When I was traveling as AFERD president, I think I went to South Dakota. Here's a holla for you, South Dakota, and Tracy over there in Laura Ingalls' neck of the woods. It was Brookings, South Dakota. And Tracy is the ED for South Dakota Shape America, South Dakota, or South Dakota Shape. I don't really know which one now. And she went to the principal and superintendent and said, we have a national leader and I want her to do professional development for all the teachers. So I did a whole day with the teachers, K through 12, on brain breaks and how to get their kids re-engaged in lessons and the science behind it. It was so awesome that this superintendent bought into this, and the teachers were excited, and they couldn't wait to go back to their classes. And when they saw that their students were losing interest or getting antsy, to jump right in and do this. And the college kids from South Dakota State University, I believe, were intending on assisting with that ongoing progress. So that was very exciting to me.
Cool.
Well, and it's, when teachers know that their administrators and at the top level buy into it, they're much more likely to feel supported and continue on with that. So that's great to hear.
Definitely the starfish also mentality, because we affect one and they affect so many others. And so that was really an excellent time.
Fran, what's your
it was actually before I was Shape America president. I went to Maine AFERD to do a dance session, and I decided to go to a secondary high school physical education session because my area is elementary physical education. I thought I want to go to something I'm not real knowledgeable about. And these 2 teachers, Cheryl Lambert and Jeff Wright, were talking about their program that's not sports-based anymore because kids were sitting out and not very motivated to participate. And they created this whole individualized program called Fitness for Life Individualized Program, FLIP. And it's a case study if anybody wants to hear more about it or read more about it. It's a Shape America case study, which I'd like to change to Shape America Success Stories because it sounds like some kind of research something or other. But these people, first,
oh no. Oh no.
Oh, she froze.
And I'm on the edge wanting to hear what they did. I'm like, oh gosh.
There she is.
Oh,
are we back?
You're
You froze,
Irene was on the edge of her seat waiting to hear. So we had you frozen for a second there.
Okay, so anyhow, it's called the FLIP program. It's in Wales, Maine, Oak Ridge High School, and they plan. Is something wrong?
oh,
Irene's having a heart attack. And I just think it's really cool how they've empowered their students to write fitness programs. They have a T-shirt. They design T-shirts, and it's just the most amazing, innovative curriculum. encourage everybody to read more and think more about it.
Yeah, we'll definitely, I'll pull that, their case study, or like you said, the success story, which I think is a very descriptive way to put it. We'll pull that and tweet it after the MOOC. I would do it now, but my multitasking skills are not that great.
Cool. Good idea.
Speaking of multitasking, Todd, I had the wrong window up. Are you going for the next
I gotta unmute. I was muted too. Fran was frozen. I was muted. Maybe that's a good thing.
Oh, Lord,
Really?
There should be more situations like that where she's frozen and I'm muted. So let's shift the gears now a little bit to professional development, and and talk about our conferences, our state conferences. As in case you haven't known, I'm a big Innovators Mindset George Couros fan. Don't know if you knew that or not, but I am. I'll just throw it out there. And he always says that you see in classrooms, voice choice, time for reflection being one of the most important things, as well as self-assessment, problem finding, critical thinking. How can we find teachers, presenters to do professional developments to help that? Because what I've noticed, some friends of mine have read the book and they say, yeah, that's great, but I don't know how to do it. And so what would your thoughts be? I'll start with you, Judi, on where we can find people who know how to do that, could train us how to do that, and so on.
Right. So Carol Dweck does a lot of work around growth mindset, and it's a learned skill, right? But I do believe that teacher reflection is the most important thing a teacher can do in order to improve. And you have me resonating over something that just happened to me today. I observed a teacher and the lesson didn't go so well. And the teacher sat with me and arms crossed, and I gave suggestions, not because I wanted to hurt or criticize, but because I want to make him the best health and physical educator that he possibly can be for his kids. And wouldn't you know it, the scoring happened. And then today I heard that he wants to meet with me and bring his union rep with him. And that's not growth. That's not reflection. That's not what we need in the profession. Teachers that are getting defensive and are constantly telling the administrator that it must have been something they did, or I didn't see the right thing, or I didn't hear the right thing, or that's dangerous. That's very dangerous for us as a profession. Professional development has got to help us get teachers to look in the mirror. We have to get professional development pieces that are not just one and dones. It's a sustained attempt at making sure teachers think critically about what they're doing in the classroom and embrace the fact that teaching is not about you. There is no you anymore. There's no you. It's only them. And if you're not going to teach so that you have students at the heart of all you do, I'm sorry, but this is not the profession for you anymore. And that's the piece about the power of accountability that we talked about before with principals and such. But in the end, we have got to help teachers practice reflection in a way that moves them toward that growth mindset. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I love the reflection piece. I think that's so important, and it's so important to establish because, I believe like you do that professional development is not an event. It's not a singular event. It's not our state conference. It's not the SHAPE conference. It is an ongoing process that all of us should engage in. Irene, what do you have thoughts on this reflection and some of what Judi had to say with the teacher prep, and then we'll go to Fran on this one as well.
I think one of the strongest reflectors, I mean, I didn't know when you first asked if it was about teacher reflection or student reflection, because I think
both.
a strong teacher who reflects on their teaching allows their student to reflect on what they've learned and to enhance the student's metacognition about what they gathered from that lesson. And the teacher young teachers are often saying, well, I did this and I did that, and I was loud enough and I knew everyone's names and I had the equipment out and I had the worksheets ready. And I keep saying to them, it's not about you. It's about whether or not your students were able to meet your goals and objectives for the day. And what did you do to get them to that process? And I think it's like pushing people up a hill. But I think the strongest reflectors and the best teachers to enhance metacognition are those that have gone through the National Board licensing process. Because when you go through and are a nationally board certified teacher, for 3 years, you are reflecting. I think that our students leave and that are from EdTPA states, which is the Teacher Candidate Performance Assessments that are required by about 35, 36 states now, some directly aligned with licensure. They do it and it's their ticket to certification, and it's not enough reflection. In the National Board, it's a bigger EdTPA. That's all it is. And it goes across 3 years, and you're tracking a student across the full year, 3 students that you've selected with all their assessments, and it really makes you look inside. So I think if we can get more National Board licensure teachers to present on their reflection, the process of self-reflection, and to include reflection in lesson plans, those are going to be the strong teachers, the Terry Drains out there, the Joe Baileys. They're going to be the strong presenters, and actually they are the strong presenters.
Awesome. Fran, do you have other things? Could you have something to add to any of that?
Yeah, sure. I'll just give a practical example. I just watched Doug Hallberg do 2 sessions at Shape America Eastern District, and it was so interesting. He integrated student reflection in his presentation, and you don't see that very often. People will present, activity after activity after activity, but he showed how not only how he engages his students socially within a really dynamic physical education activity, but how he takes time for the students to learning. The other thing he did that I thought was really cool, he showed how he personally tries to engage himself with ongoing learning. And he pulled up a Joford article from 2007, and it was on how to do invasion games, grid games. And he was encouraging the audience at this session to, by the way, don't forget to check out your professional journals. Don't forget to check out those webinars. I really learned a whole lot about that. He goes, because he made a joke, he's like, oh yeah, don't forget, you actually have to read those journals. And so he was showing how he personally integrates reflection into his own professional growth. And during his session, he actually took time for the teachers who were acting as students to also reflect on what were they learning and why were they learning it. And so when I think about reflection, I totally agree with everything Irene was saying. That's really cool, good stuff. But this was just a personal experience I just had a few days ago. And I thought that was powerful that he did that in his session.
How many teachers do you think ask students to do a reflection at the end of it? I mean, you want to talk about terrifying, ask a group of high schoolers what they thought of your lesson, but you want to talk about honest? Go to them.
Yeah. Yep.
It's interesting that you brought up reflection because that's actually one of my growth goals this year. I'm working with myself and 3 administrators, and what we're trying to establish, which probably won't come to full fruition until next year, is modeling kind of a portfolio reflection assessment from administrators to teachers and down to students, so that instead of everything being about grades and you wrote this paper and you did this rubric, but it's more about where's your evidence. It's kind of the Danielson model for everybody in a sense. Provide evidence of learning in some way. And so we're working with that. We're playing around with that now. But are you seeing that? Are any of you seeing that in any of your travels? We'll just work backwards. Fran, Irene, then Judi. Are you seeing any of the portfolio type assessments or reflections, both administrator, teacher, and then down to student?
Teachers creating their own portfolios?
Correct. And I don't mean necessarily written. It could be online. I mean, I haven't really found too many examples when I searched it because it was a professional growth piece of mine, but I just wondered if you're seeing that anywhere.
Well, I don't really think I've had the opportunity to have that conversation. That question just hasn't come up because, what we do when we go to different state conferences doesn't really afford that conversation, I would say. So I don't really think I've ever asked the question. I don't really think I've delved into it. So I don't really know.
Okay. All right. Irene, have you seen that at all?
Well, you know, you're seeing that now at the in higher ed, where the faculty are doing our portfolios and have to connect our evals and what the students say, and we have to connect them to our teacher certification portfolios, which are aligned with the standards. And so what we're doing should be evidence in our student teacher candidates' work. The next level below is for them to then collect their student artifacts. If you look at some of Linda Darling Hammond's work with the international schools in New York City, those students use a lot of portfolios for their performance-based assessments. But you see the students reflecting, but I don't think you see that piece of the teachers and the administrators reflecting, except for them saying how successful the process was based on the student level of knowledge and reflection. So that's an interesting take, Todd. There you go. There's your doctoral work right there. Exactly. Because you would totally triangulate learning then.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, I mean, you wouldn't get a bad evaluation from an administrator if your self-reflection triangulated with the success of 3 selected students, say that you tracked across an academic year, and their reflections. And but the problem is in our topic, oh, we don't want them to stop and write anything. Oh, there shouldn't be homework. Oh, we only have 1 set of books in health, and you have all of these obstacles that come up. So.
Judi, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, where I think about this is that, teacher reflection is a teacher's professional responsibility, end of story. And when I see evidence of that, it's usually at the end of the year for their teacher evaluation, all the artifacts coming together so that the teacher can provide evidence to me that they've done their student growth objectives, that they're showing me that they've called parents, that they're showing me that they've planned standards-based lessons, and along the way, collecting all those pieces so that at the end of the day, they want to get that score, right? And they want to be able to have all these pieces of evidence. But for me, it's, push the paper aside for a second and have a conversation with me. It's the end of May. You've had a year. What was your year like? Talk to me about your year. What was the highlight of your year? What was the low light of your year? What was something you struggled with? What was an obstacle for you? And getting the teacher talking about those things, and then talking about the paper, right? So when student growth objectives first came about in New Jersey, which is, oh my God, 4 or 5 years ago now, many health and physical educators panicked because they were like, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. I have to learn a new thing. Exactly what can I provide evidence for? And does student improvement count? What if not all my kids can give me a perfect overhand throw for power? What am I going to do? And the profession panicked for a little while. And then once we got to talking with each other and learning about what SGOs really are and documenting what types of tests we gave to kids, it was like learning to walk again for teachers, because, the teacher that was the most threatened was the teacher that was the least reflective, right? And so if you're that teacher that comes into the gym and only grades on what it is you see, my kids are breathing, my kids are prepared, and my kids are on the floor, how are you going to make an SGO out of that? That's not a national standard. So the fear that it brought motivation as well, because when you link something to a teacher's evaluation, people step up and listen. So if we can make reflection that very important part of evaluation, now I think we're on to something.
Cool.
That was really profound. I mean, I think, I know myself, I think reflection is a skill, and I would even maybe we should throw a challenge to our administrators in the audience to teach reflection to your teachers, and then continue that teachers teach reflection to your students, because I don't know how you all were, but I'm just thinking back into my own career, and my first 2 or 3 years of teaching, I thought I reflected, but I not even close to what we do now. So thank you for that. Jessica, we got anything else?
No, I think Judi, that's like another, we've had many mic drop moments with the 3 of you. And I think that's a really good place to kind of wrap it up. And a lot of statements and things that are said challenge people's way of thinking. And I think that's, you know, where there's challenge, there's change, and there's growth. And we can't be content in doing what we've always done. You know, we need teachers to step up and really be what students need them to be. And I thank all three of you for the work that you are doing, not only with your teachers and your students in a K-12 setting, but with the future teachers as well, because I think, you know, we are our future, and reaching those students at that level and really carrying the torch to the next generation is how our profession is going to grow and how it's going to last. So I cannot wait for this Twitter chat on Thursday. I am so excited for it. I know we had a very engaging one last week, and I know next week, or this week, Thursday at 8, will be just as awesome. So many thanks to the three of you for joining us. It has been awesome. And as always, I've learned, I've been inspired, and I'm motivated, and I can't wait to get back to work after listening to the three of you.
Can I do one shout out to all the teachers out there?
Yeah.
Shape America has an initiative going on. We're piloting some health and physical education assessments, and we need teachers to pilot these assessments. You'll be assisted in how to do it by our research fellows. And so if you're interested in being reflective and taking that next step and trying something a little innovative and out of the box, contact Shape America and be a part of this assessment initiative, because we need evidence of what our students are learning. So for the first time, we're looking at creating national assessments for physical educators and health educators to use. So be part of this and contact Shape America or myself and get involved.
And we'll make sure to share out contact information for the three of you, as well as the case studies / success stories. So thanks so much, everyone. Todd, always great hosting with you. And we look forward to seeing you on the Twitter chat on Thursday at 8.
Yeah, ladies, thank you so much for being a part of things tonight. I mean, you were everything I thought you'd be and more. And I feel like we could have made this like 2 more hours and probably still covered 15 more things and not had enough. So we are doing season 2. Jessica made me commit to it the other day on the Twitter chat. I was going to try to be evasive, but she made it happen. So maybe we could get you back in the spring. Maybe we could each do an episode and connect somehow. So hopefully you'll join us. I won't put you on the spot here on YouTube Live, but we'll definitely stay in touch, and I want to try to get you guys back, because this was I learned so much tonight, and I know our viewers did too, and we were so thank you for being a part of tonight.
Thanks.